the videos, we can measure. These are not air pressure speeds. They're explosively propelled speeds. And they're 20, 40, and even 60 stories down below this zone of destruction. And let's say that this is the open office planning here in the Twin Towers, and there's the elevator shaft, and that air is going to come rushing down into this space. Is it going to fill the room with air pressure fairly uniformly, or is it going to be highly focalized, pinpoint accurate ejections out of these windows? No, if it blows out any of those windows, it'll blow them all out, right? So none of it makes sense. Now, how fast is this building coming down?
Galileo's law of falling bodies calculates the time in which an object will travel a certain distance in complete free fall. Distance, d, equals 16.8 times time in seconds squared. The South Tower was 1,362 feet tall. 1362 equals 16.08 times 84.7, or 9.2 seconds.
Well, there's 1 second, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
The Twin Towers came down in nearly free fall speed.
What does that mean? Let's just try to put this in perspective. What is free fall speed? Here's a 15-story building, just like the top of the Twin Towers. We're going to hold it up with a big crane. Next to it, another one. And over this one, nothing but air. Over this one, say another building that's 95 stories with 80,000 tons of structural steel in it, designed to resist not only that load, but about 5 times more than that load. We're going to pull the lever on these cranes, drop them magically. NIST tells us that that they both hit the ground pretty much at the same time. Okay? How many of us think that's reasonable?
You're the captain.
That's good. We know intuitively, this is 7th grade physics, anything with resistance under it is going to at least slow down, even if it does make it all the way up. If it does make it at all down to the ground. Well, hey, I've got a 95-story building here with me today. Let's just see what happens. We're going to run a little experiment here. That's what we do in the scientific method. Experiments. Now, I may be an architect, but I'm not an idiot. I know these are boxes. Okay? What's my point? These are not Twin Towers. My point is that if there's going to be some resistance, intuitively, we are going to be able to understand that there's going to be a difference in the behavior when I drop these 2 boxes, right? Are you guys ready?
Right.
3, 2. I can't even do it. It's just too obvious. So, but what's the problem with this experiment? Does anybody see a 15-story building driving the rest of the building down to the ground? No, it's been destroyed, as you saw, in the first 4 seconds. After that, it's the building tearing itself apart at free fall acceleration almost. 2/3 of free fall is what David Chandler, physics teacher, has schooled NIST with. It's tearing itself apart. And it's dismembering the structure completely. There are no masses of buildings anywhere. Remember those pictures I showed you about how buildings behave? You see a building, you just see these shards of perimeter wall units. Let's see how the South Tower behaves. In fact, speaking of dismemberment, it is 30 stories tall above the point of jet plane impacts, and it does begin to tip. Okay, so this is really interesting. Let's take a look at what's happening here. We have 22 degrees this building's tipping off of axis. Its center of gravity is off the center of gravity below. We would expect that angular momentum to continue and to find that building in a mass down at the bottom. It doesn't. It dismembers itself. It's disintegrated in that cloud of dust that you saw. And so we have asymmetrical damage from the airplanes. asymmetrical damage from the fires and asymmetrical loading from that piece up above, what would we expect from looking below? Well, what we see is complete symmetry all the way down the building, and at 2/3 of free fall acceleration. That's how fast it's traveling down there. That's getting faster and faster and faster and faster straight down through the path of what was the greatest resistance. What happened to that resistance to allow this building to fall that fast? Those columns and beams are completely broken up from each other, save a few that remain attached. Outside, most of it, the boundaries, the footprints of those buildings. And we have lateral ejection of steel that happens, that is clocked anywhere from 50 to 78 miles per hour. Lateral speed, instantly accelerated out of the side of each of the towers, landing 600 feet away. That takes a force, quite a bit of force, in fact. And that force is documented by David Chandler. And you can take a look at that in our 2-hour version. But speaking of that lateral force, what happened to those floors? Didn't we have 110 floors in each of these buildings? Weren't each of them an acre in size? Weren't they 4 inches thick in concrete and over 22 gauge metal decking? Does anybody know where that stuff is? I'm looking for a pile of floors 110 high. I'd settle for 50. Hey, I'd settle for 10. This is a 7-story lobby. It's only half full of debris. What's in that debris? No floors. Where are the floors? Where's the metal decking? This is a 2-story pile of core columns, beams, and so forth. In a pancaking collapse, we're looking for some pancakes. There's a problem there. Where's all the concrete?
You have 2 110-story office buildings. You don't find a desk. You don't find a chair. You don't find a telephone, a computer. The biggest piece of a telephone I found was half of the keypad, and it was about this big. The building collapsed to dust.
And that dust made it all the way across the Hudson River, and it was pulverized. We'll take a look at that in a moment. Right now. This incredible quantity and volume display of this concrete entrained in the air, this dust, pyroclastic-like clouds, is available to us immediately. That's what starts the detonation in both the South Tower and the North Tower. It's unbelievable. And expanding outward across the river, filling lower Manhattan with 4 and 12-inch thick blanket of this powder. What is the powder made of? 20 to 30% of it is concrete. That's where the floors are, all throughout lower Manhattan. Now, how does that happen? That's where the metal decking is too, by the way. In all the samples of this powder, you have small metal filings. That's where the file cabinets are. Tens of thousands